What made you straight up nope out of a relationship? After maybe 2 years of him constantly trying to make me jealous, we temporarily had a 16-hour time difference as I was traveling home to see my grandparents. When I was asleep for maybe 7 hours because, well, it was nighttime, and I had not responded to his 50 texts, he finally said he was going to spend time with other girls for 7 hours that day because that's how long I was probably going around sleeping with men. Lol, I don't know why, but at that moment it was like a moment of clarity and I just replied okay. Blocked him, his family, and all his friends and just moved on. Story 2. I had a very long and toxic relationship with an ex. I'd wanted to leave for years, but he would threaten to end it all and I would end up staying. I finally got the courage to walk away when I was diagnosed with several benign liver tumors and was told by the doctor that it was very important with this type of tumor to immediately and permanently stop taking hormonal birth control. I researched it on my own and confirmed the single most important thing I could do to avoid further complications was to stop taking hormonal birth control for good. I told my then husband about the appointment, and he said so calmly, well, that's going to be a problem. I was like, what do you mean? I'll go to the gyno as soon as I can get an appointment and we can just use protection until then. Nope. Protections were unacceptable because we were married and not having intimacy until I got to the gyno was also unacceptable. What really made me run cold though was when he suggested that I should continue to take birth control as normal and just not tell the doctor. I'll never know, he said. Then he went on to suggest maybe I could go on and off birth control so I'd be off it before any follow-up appointments with this doctor to ensure that he'd never know. I was totally stunned, and I just looked at him and said, you understand this could end me? This isn't about placating a doctor. This is about my life. He just shrugged and said he wasn't using protections and I needed to figure it out. I did figure it out. I left him more than a decade ago and I've never been happier. Story 3. Married for 6 years. Started out thinking she just struggled with depression and anxiety sometimes, but things kept escalating. I walked away when she started threatening me in my sleep. I'd already tried several couples therapists and individual therapists, but she refused to consider medication. I called her to meet up and try to find some closure, but she cut me off telling me I wasn't allowed to leave her, and as punishment, she was sleeping with 2 other guys. At that point, I just ignored her number and filed for divorce. Hope she's doing well, but glad to not be afraid for my life. Story 4. We weren't in a relationship, but I had a developing thing with a guy once. Until one day when I wasn't around, he and some other friends of ours went to a bar and he sneakily slipped stronger alcohol into some other girl's drink there. This girl, apparently, was talking a lot with one of her other friends and not showing much attention to him, so he got jealous and threw this friend. He was obviously thrown out of the bar after that and later tried to play it off as just a joke and just messing around. How do you jokingly try to harm someone anyway? Anyway, I dropped this guy out of my life right after I found out. I definitely wouldn't want to be stuck with someone like that. Story 5. My most recent ex would always ask me random questions like, what would you do if someone came running towards us right now? Bearing in mind that's pretty vague, I'd answer something like, move out of their way so they can keep running? And she'd say, wrong answer, then get mad at me because she meant to attack us and I didn't say I'd jump in her way to defend her. And she used to ask all sorts of very vague questions when I'd answer her. She'd say, wrong answer, and get mad at me for not answering the way she wanted me to, so I got out of there as quickly as I could. Story 6. I had a huge crush on her for a while, but never had the opportunity to talk to her, given her weird work schedules. Then a friend from work set us up. I was elated. Our first date went really well, and we hit it off. We started spending as much time as we could around each other, talking on the phone every night, all the special things you do when you're starting a new relationship. Then she started coming over more often, unannounced. She would stay for a couple nights, then a week, then 2 weeks. I would come home from work and she would be in my house, sometimes intoxicated. The thing was, she had almost been fired for an incident involving alcohol before and was lying to them about her sobriety. She would have a few too many, then go off about her family or how I wasn't taking our 2-month relationship seriously enough. The final straw dropped on Valentine's Day this year. She got annihilated to the point of not being able to walk on her own. After I refused her intoxicated advances, she flipped out. What followed was a couple of hours of her threatening to drive home intoxicated, sitting outside so the cold weather would freeze her, lying in my bed and wailing my name until hoarse, and alternating between manic laughter and crying. 2 days later, once she had sobered up, I told her to kick rocks. We dated for just around 3 months. It was the quickest turnaround ever for me in a relationship. Story 7. When my now ex-wife came into the living room where I was sleeping on the couch after a fight and started lunging at me. She asked me if she reminded me of my stepfather who used to come into my room at night and stand over me before he dragged me out of bed. He would then put the boots to me for whatever sins I'd committed that day. She was the only person I had ever shared this with. She went out of town for work 2 days later, and when she came home, I was gone in another state. It was remarkable, the amount of cruelty I had put up with to that point. It dawned on me that if he had returned to my life, I wouldn't let him hurt me, so there was no reason to let her harm me either. Story 8. I dated this girl who was jealous, and I mean super jealous. I couldn't hang out with my friends without her constantly calling me. Obviously, I couldn't do the same because how could I be jealous? That would have meant I didn't trust her. That's annoying enough to end a relationship, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. After 9 months, I found out from one of my friends, who also happened to be a close friend of hers, that she had been hiding her sexuality from me. She was actually bi. At first, I didn't really get why she did that because I absolutely have no problem with these things. My mutual friend then told me that she was going around having intimacy with other women. So basically, she was hiding her bisexuality so that she could have intimacy with any girl she wanted to, without me even suspecting anything. Sometimes she even had tryouts with the girls as boyfriends. When I told her I knew everything, she started telling me that she didn't want me to know because those other people didn't really matter to her and she didn't love them. Needless to say, I noped the hell out of there. Story 9. Not even a relationship, but we got very close. I met a guy through a local theater and I thought he was cool, but then he started following me around everywhere when I was at a practice or shows. The last straw was when I didn't get notified that a practice had been canceled and he was waiting there, saying I just felt like someone would show up. That absolutely raised my alarm bells. The worst part is, when I tried to get help from the director or other actors, they'd ignore me or try to tell me that he's just trying to be nice and he can't help it. I blocked and deleted his number since, and I'm sad to say I haven't gone back to public theater, as he's still actively involved in most plays in town. Story 10. I was going through some stuff in my early 20s and was pretty desperate for any kind of attention, which is the only reason I took a couple weeks to back out of this. The second time I ever met her, she told me to delete every girl's number from my phone, sister included. She then came over to my place, saw I had a full bookshelf and ridiculed me for being a reader, and in the same breath announced that she loved substances so much and wanted me to try it. Finally, I escaped, but by then she was already sleeping with 2 of my friends, who are obviously no longer my friends. The good news is, I've now been happily married for 5 years and consider myself so incredibly lucky. Story 11. I've been together for quite a while, 6 to 8 months, and lived together for at least 2 months when I decided to make tuna salad. I asked how he liked it. He told me. I came back with 2 bowls, half the can made his way and half the can made the way I liked it. He completely freaked out. He said, "If we can't agree on how to eat tuna, how will this ever work?" I said that we don't have to agree, we can both have it exactly the way we want and be happy. He vehemently disagreed. I started thinking of all of his other controlling behavior and inability to compromise. It wasn't that day that we broke up, but it was definitely the day our relationship broke. The cheating didn't help either. Story 12. He wanted me to spend time only with him or my family. He checked my phone and wanted me to have only 5 chats. My mom, my dad, my sibling, and him. I could not talk, say hi, or hug my male friends, and eventually I was not allowed to have them. I wasn't allowed to meet my girlfriends either. At some point, he took my phone and unfollowed every male on my Instagram. He used to come to my place and stay there with me to avoid going out. I dreamt about traveling to Japan, but he said no because at that time I really liked one Japanese actor and he was afraid I could meet him and fall for him. Toxic as hell. I had the guts to break up only after 2 years of relationship. He stalked me a couple of weeks after. Now I value myself a lot more and would never ever let someone do something like this. Story 13. Not romantic, but this guy is a residential assistant at my university. A student who works with security to help with issues on campus and had been my friend since first year. When I first met him, I got bad vibes. We'd be mid-sentence talking about something I liked and he'd pat my bed and ask me to sit with him. My flatmate told me to give him a chance, so I simply did. The second year we went for a walk and he spent the whole time insulting my outfit. It was a little different to what I normally wore, but I bought a new hat and was excited to wear it. He told me the hat didn't suit me and would suit him more. He took it off my head and wore it instead and just trashed my outfit. They get to a forest area while on our walk and he tells me something along the lines of, "If somebody harmed you, you'd be completely defenseless." I told him that my chunky shoes would protect me as I could kick them, and he swept my legs out from underneath me to prove that I couldn't defend myself. He said, "Your shoes didn't help you there, did they?" Later, while I was back home with my parents, he called me around midnight. He did a lot of fishing for compliments, then he said, "If you could have intimacy with me, you would." I told this person about my trauma, so this hit pretty hard. I spoke to my mental health advisor at university, and he told me that was inappropriate and I should report him, but he's an RA. He's the person I should be reporting these things to. I just avoid him now. Story 14. We don't really call it a relationship. It was only 3 dates, but I had met this girl at a wedding. She was a friend of a friend, and we exchanged numbers that night. We texted for a while and then had a date. The first date was probably a big red flag, but I shrugged it off. We connected on Facebook, and she noticed that she went to college with a girl I went to high school with. No big deal, until I found out she had been messaging that girl and asking her all these questions about me in high school. Who did I date? What car I drove, etc. Anyway, the third date rolled around. I wasn't really sure how long we would be together, so typically I wouldn't have taken her to a really nice restaurant so early in a relationship, but I was in the mood for steak, so I took her to a pretty high-end steakhouse. I've never been more embarrassed by someone's behavior in public in my life, and I have a 6 and 3-year-old at home now. She sent 3 martinis back because they weren't made correctly while being extremely insulting and rude about it. She ordered a steak medium and then got angry because she insisted she ordered it medium rare. Both the waiter and I told her she had ordered medium. She was making comments about what other women in the restaurant were wearing, and not very subtly. Then, despite me trying to get out of there without buying her dessert, she got a dessert menu and expected them to make her something they didn't have on the menu. They had cheesecake, and she wanted chocolate cheesecake. Another outburst of the staff. On the way out the door, she made a point to stop and complain to someone loud enough other customers could hear. When we got into my car, I was so embarrassed I pretended I left my credit card on the table so I could go back in. I gave the waiter an extra $20 and apologized, telling him I was dumping her as soon as I got to her place. He laughed and told me he wished he could see it. I didn't really give her a chance to say much. She called me a loser and stormed off. I haven't seen or heard from her since. Story 15. And my SO could not be happy for me and my success after 5 years of busting my bum to achieve my dream career and me finally achieving it. I was dragging myself through my depression day after day to fight against application rejections, isolated in a house I couldn't afford to leave and do anything meaningful due to where we lived, as I worked on my craft, indoors at a desk, but didn't go out much. I never wanted to do anything when he got home from work but drink and play games. Despite claiming to support me as a strong woman, his support flew out the window the moment I was finally becoming happy. I tried to bring him with me to the new city since he hated where he was. I offered him a beautiful life together and a change of pace he desperately deserved, especially for emotionally supporting me through my hardship, but all he gave me back was snarky jealousy of my position, entitlement, demands that I leave my job, negativity towards my new good friends, belittling my success as just my first job in this career, and refusal to come with me out of pride. He kept using his depression as a shield against taking responsibility for being a schmuck, claiming it made him do it, but not doing anything to work on his depression. I left him 6 months into the new job when he truly didn't understand that I did nothing wrong in my happiness and he needed to handle his issues without taking them out on me. He admitted in the end that he didn't appreciate me and blamed me for his problems, but still refused to change his behavior. So, I explained to him calmly why I could not continue and left without looking back. Nobody should have a cement block tied to their legs while swimming. I've been incredibly happy since. Story 16. I kept having to call the cops to calm down my wife after she became fixated in a slew of prescriptions. One of the times that I called the cops to calm the situation down during a bad episode just made me cry. All the officer had to say was that he had already been there and asked when it would stop. I thought I'd been holding things together reasonably well. I had an office job where no one knew what was up, though my work had suffered greatly. I kept clothes and food in my trunk just in case I had to stay out for a bit because she had decided I was part of the conspiracy. I had a gym on the way to work where I could shower or just have some downtime. I did all of her housework and errands because she couldn't work or do much of anything most of the time. Each time she harmed herself. She told the hospital it was an accident and she always tried to go to a different one. I lived in a major metro between hospitals. The cops saw through it. Being like that and knowing that even that lifestyle was running out hurt. I'm now recovering from the divorce and enjoying the calm. I still sometimes panic for no reason and I feel more comfortable with clothes and food stashed in the trunk, but I feel much healthier. I get more sleep. The pressure is normalized for the most part. I don't cry at work anymore. Story 17. I asked a girl out and we went to hang out with some of her friends. She and another guy started having a serious conversation and stepped outside to continue it. I subtly asked around and people were like, that's a whole drama thing. So later I drove her home and got the scoop. He's an ex who stalked her for years since the breakup. He's sure they're going to get back together and she has a restraining order against him. Okay, I can deal with this. Next day, she and this guy are standing out in front of her apartment and he's holding her new puppy. She gets in my car and tells him to put the puppy back. How will he do this? It turns out he has the key to the apartment. The guy with a restraining order. After that very short dinner date, I took her home and ghosted. Story 18. I was dating a guy for about a week in high school. I went on a class field trip for one of my classes and we were going to be gone all day. The guy I was dating would always walk me to my classes, so I told him a few days prior that I wasn't going to be at school the day of the field trip. Well, my field trip ended up ending early and I managed to make it for my last class of the day. The guy I was dating was waiting outside of my classroom. He saw me and started crying because he thought that I was avoiding or hiding from him all day. I reminded him about the field trip I'd been mentioning for the past few days and he refused to believe me because I was there for my last class. So yeah, we talked it out a bit and I had a very awkward and drawn-out breakup with him after class that then extended into the following Monday. Story 19. I realized he was trying to cut me off from my support network. It started off innocuously enough. He didn't like my two closest friends and would make remarks like, do we have to hang out with him? Can we see some of your other friends? I figured, whatever, he doesn't have to like everyone. Then I realized he liked anyone if I wasn't really close to them. I realized that he had started to act rude and crass around my closest friends but was nice and charming with other people. One night I told him I was going to hang out with my best friend alone and he went off and said he was a dog. She was trash and I shouldn't waste my time. I told him he was a schmuck and he threatened to break up with me if I didn't end my friendship with her. I said that sounded like a good idea. I went to my mom's house that night and poured out some kind of sob story to her to make her think I was a cold-hearted person who had broken up with him for no reason and to help convince me to get back with him. I told him I didn't need someone to control my life, and I certainly didn't need him. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 20. I met this guy on Tinder. I should preface by saying I wasn't thinking with the right head. I found her super attractive and we hit it off. About 2 weeks later, I invited her over on a Friday night to come chill with me. We chilled and had a few drinks. It got late and I asked her if she wanted to stay the night. She agreed. I had a bit too much to drink, so in my head, I didn't want to try anything with her because if I was feeling messed up, this woman who was smaller than me definitely was too. I went to sleep. When I woke up, she was still there. I wake up early, so I just hung out for a bit until she woke up. I don't have a car, but I offered, "Hey, let me know whenever you're ready, I can call you an Uber." She kind of brushed this off. We were talking for a bit, and she brought up for the first time how she doesn't have the best family life and isn't looking to go back home at the moment. I felt bad and let her know she could stay another night if she wanted. This happened. I gave her space since my sober attempts at flirting seemed to have been shot down. One more night turned into damn near a week. I don't know what's wrong with me. I felt bad, but after a few days, it started feeling like she was taking advantage, and my attraction for her slowly started slipping. The kicker, when she ended up leaving, it was like 3 a.m. I woke up to see she was about to leave with a hoodie I let her borrow. I groggily asked her with a half smile, "You about to steal my hoodie?" She answered, "Oh, you didn't want me to steal it?" When I tell you I could feel a half smile on my face drop. It's crazy because as we were texting before we met, we were full-on flirting back and forth. I really thought we were just going to kick it and leave it at that. Maybe make it a consistent thing. Nope. She never messaged me after leaving. I was fine with never talking to her again, to be honest, but I told this to my older brother. He told me to at least message her and let her know that I wasn't interested because I wouldn't like it if someone did that to me. I messaged her, she blocked me, end of story. Story 21. I slept together with her after a party during our final quarter in college. A few days later, she texted me that I should come to her place to do it again. I came over to find her pretty intoxicated on a Tuesday, but was down to sleep with her again. This became a nightly thing where she'd go out and get plastered and then text me to meet her at her apartment to do it. She'd never invite me to party with her, because she was supposedly having girl time with her friends. Eventually, I told her that if we were going to continue to do it, we needed to go on an actual date and hang out sober. She agreed and told me that she'd only go on a date with me if I planned an elaborate, expensive date and got her to approve it. Also, she expected me to spend around $1,000 in the date and she wouldn't be sober. Story 22. I was seeing this guy for a couple of weeks. I hadn't met his 2 young kids yet because that was his choice. He tells me that he's fighting for his kids. The mom took them in the breakup but doesn't really want them. Is living at parents and doesn't have to do anything if she has the kids. So one night I'm over and he tells me the following. If we were to get serious, I'd move into his apartment, I'd take care of his kids and clean his apartment while he's at work, and he'd expect dinner to be ready when he gets home from work. He told me to think about it for a few days. He said if I couldn't do this, then we could be buddies until he met someone else that he would straight up cut me off. Why was he doing this? Because his kids need a mom and they need stability. I hadn't even met his kids. I ended up telling him no, and I'm glad I did. Story 23. As soon as he told me I wasn't even his type. I unfortunately couldn't break up with him right away, but all attraction I had was gone. He claimed to have had a crush on me, but we were talking about what we found attractive in each other, and he looked me straight in my eyes and said, "I think Asian girls are really sexy. Your eyes are kind of squinty, so I really like that." I was so confused by this statement. I'm Hispanic, I have pretty round eyes. I kept asking all our mutual friends, "Do I have squinty eyes?" The answer was all no. I asked complete strangers, and they said no. I don't know what they wanted to see in me, but clearly myself wasn't enough. When we broke up, he started going out with an Asian girl literally the next day, but she dropped his bum after 2 months of trying to believe it was solely my fault for our breakup. She and I shared a laugh over his story that he walked in on me having intimacy with another dude, and I was like, not only is that not true, he doesn't even have a car and I live almost an hour away by car. I didn't walk in on anything. Story 24. Not a relationship, but a second date. He explained that he had already worked out our future. He declared that both of our children would attend private elite schools because his kids would not mingle with the children of working class people, and that they must attend religious classes too. Also, that I needed to visit the church regularly and dress like a lady because these were important to his mother. Needless to say, I was and am an atheist, child-free woman from the working class, so I laughed it off, told him to leave me alone and left. He sent me an email the size of an A4 paper. It was way too long, so I didn't care to read it. 2 sentences I did catch in the beginning stated all the reasons why we were compatible and that me liking fried duck as a meal was not a deal breaker for him and he would try it for me. Just another what the hell person. Story 25. She would bring me to concerts with her friends and then just run off with them, leaving me alone and then calling me crazy and controlling when I would get mad at her for doing so. A few times I went to the bar with her and some friends and she would do the same thing. I'd eventually find them talking to a group of guys and she would tell me she was just flirting with them to get free drinks. I had to be 100% supportive of every single thing she did or else I was being controlling. Well, everything I did was wrong. When I would do something nice for her, she would find something wrong with it and get mad at me. When I would make plans with friends, she would get mad at me. I learned what gaslighting is. Story 26. First date through a dating site. I'd been chatting for a few weeks. I lived in Antwerp at the time, and I invited her to a great jazz bar, The Muse, for anyone interested, to start off the evening. She knew a restaurant and would take me there afterward. First of all, she was late. Not can't find parking late, but I've not left yet at the meeting time late. She asked me to order her something, and she would arrive shortly. There I was with 2 red wines, and during the waitress's look of, she stood you up. The first thing she said was not, sorry I'm late, it was, I don't like your shoes. I usually wear very generic black leather shoes, the kind that really cannot be ugly or beautiful. In any case, she finished 2 red wines like lemonade. She talked about her exciting day as clothes shop manager, and we left for dinner. At this point, I had determined that I wanted to keep it short, but I was hungry as well, so I decided to stick it out. She could not find the restaurant she knew while roaming the streets of Antwerp. All of a sudden, she yelled, "Here it is!" I have an inkling she was relieved to find a place that was labeled restaurant to save face. The place was brightly lit. The tablecloth was plastic, and the food was made with powder and hot water, I think. The wine was apparently good since we emptied a bottle. I had 1 glass. Finally, I could go home, only to find out we were parked near each other, so we walked to the parking spot. Upon arriving at my car, I said goodbye and went home. I logged on and saw her online, relieved that she did not crash. I blocked her. She was smoking hot, though. Story 27. I was dating this guy for about 6 months. He was on the dating site, which I knew about. He said he was only there because a woman posted profile pics and he used them to, I said that's fine, but never contacted any other women. I thought this was a reasonable line and he agreed. So one day I was on the computer and decided to check out the site myself. I want to stress I wasn't trying to catch him out. I wasn't snooping. If he hadn't been logged in, I wouldn't have tried to log in. I trusted him and I liked women too. So I thought I might find something interesting. Yep, I did. Hundreds of women he had contacted asking for pics. I was automatically logged in and I saw the notifications for messages. These were from the day before, so he had no excuse. I confronted him and left. This was a massive thing for me because I had a lot of issues and leaving relationships just wasn't something I was able to do. But it did that day and never looked back. I was, and still am 9 years later, really proud of myself. Story 28. We decided to watch Breaking Bad together. I'd seen it years before, but couldn't remember a lot of what happened and was excited to watch it again. I think we watched about 4 to 5 episodes the first night, and the next morning I had to go to work. She was staying at my place for a while and didn't have a proper job at the time. So I got home from work that evening, excited to watch more with her, and she told me that she'd watched the whole thing while I was gone. I thought she was joking, so I laughed it off, but she insisted. I told her it was impossible. I was only gone for about 9 hours and there was about 5 seasons of the show. Then she told me that she had gone online and watched these 15-minute recaps of every season because she wanted to know what happened but didn't want to spend the time watching the show to find out. Seems like a small thing, but it was pretty much the last straw for me. We were already having a lot of problems, and I was beginning to realize she had been emotionally mistreating and manipulating me for some time. Story 29. This was back in January. She was a tenant in my house, and we stayed decent friends, but this was above and beyond anything I'd experienced with her. Let's call her Brit. She read some tarot cards that said this was the season of moving. She informed me of this, and I said, "Okay, so are you going to move?" She said, "I'm not sure. I definitely want to move before Mercury goes into retrograde, and I want to do it soon." So she gives notice to move out in April. Fine. Then she gives notice for March. Then she asks if she can leave next week. You know what? Fine. Whatever. Sure, move next week. I'll help you get out. Then she changes her mind and wants to move in April, then March. I told her to make up her mind. She finally decides she wants to leave in 2 weeks. Okay, fine. Let me help you move out. She then decides that moving means vacation, that she wants to go to Hawaii to relax on the beach. I tried to tell her that there were plenty of beaches where we lived, West Coast USA, and she could relax there. Nope, she wants to be in a beach in Hawaii. Now, a few things to keep in mind. She's a broke single mom that is completely irresponsible with her money. She'll blow money on a whim and never has anything saved. It's a poverty mindset. Why save when there's always an emergency? I'll just deal with it when it happens. Now, there's nothing wrong with broke single women. I get it. Being a single parent is hard, but it's that she decides to dump her kid off with her ex, take the stimmy check and use that money to book a plane ticket to Hawaii and say, "Yo, I'll be back in 6 months. Landlord, can you hold my place for me at the house? I don't want to pay rent during this time, but can you hold it until I get back?" I told her no. She gave notice. I already posted an ad. She's leaving. In other conversations I had with her, she expresses that she misses the freedom of not being a parent and wishes she could take back being a mom. She then informed her child that she would be gone for up to 6 months, but wasn't sure when she would be back. Her child was understandably devastated, but took the news best he could. During the last few days at the house, I went over to do some normal maintenance housework. Well, there, her son was in my way. "Move! God, you're always in the way," she shouted at him. "Sorry," her child said sheepishly. He moved and I continued about my work, but he was in my way again as I continued to work. "Hey, yo, you gotta get out of his way! God, you're so slow at everything! Jesus, would you move?" He didn't reply and sulked off to his bedroom. I was thinking, If she's like this when I'm around, what is she like when I'm not around? After moving out completely, her son went off to his father's place while she booked it for Hawaii. When she reached Hawaii, she texted me that she was sorry for being so hasty in coming out, but hoped we could remain friends. I told her to screw off and never contact me again. I assumed things were over. Nope. Within 2 weeks, I got a request from 2 different landlords asking me for a rental reference for her. Like, is she insane? So she told everyone she was going to Hawaii for 6 months and stayed there for 2 weeks and came back. What the actual hell? I told the 2 landlords that I refused to give a rental reference and that I would not rent to her again. She requested a 3rd rental reference from me from yet another landlord. When that landlord asked me for a reference, I told him, could you kindly tell her to screw off? She won't listen to me, but maybe she'll listen to a stranger. I never heard from her again. Story 30. This is gonna age me. I've been dating her for about a year. Things were going great. When we started dating, she had mentioned some friends of hers, and there was one in particular she talked a lot about. This other guy. Kinda made me jealous because she'd hang out with him quite a bit, but whenever I was around, he was always busy or working. So after a bit, I said something to her, and she told me I was being crazy. Then one day on AIM, he messaged me, and I was like, hey man, I just want you to know nothing is going on between us. We're just friends. After that, he messaged me every now and then and always said we should meet one day, but there was always some reason I couldn't meet him. After a while, I just got used to it and didn't think anything of it. Now, a year later, I'm at her house and a freak snowstorm came in and basically trapped me there for a few days. One day I wake up first, go down and get on the computer and go to sign on to my AIM. There it is, the screen name saved in her computer and there's no password. I sign on thinking I'm going to find some evidence they've been fooling around, but what I discovered was even worse. Click here to get the... joke. No, really, I signed on and the only freaking name on his friends list was me. I was the only person he had talked to, and for a second I was baffled and didn't understand what that meant. Then it hit me. She was him. She had made up her best friend from the moment I met her and made up all these stories. The reason I couldn't meet him was because he was her, my girlfriend. So yeah, I got catfished by my girlfriend for a year before catfishing was a thing. I confronted her, she broke down in tears and admitted she made up a friend because she didn't have any real friends and didn't want to seem weird. I told her we were done, but I was trapped there by a snowstorm, so in the next 3 days she convinced me to stay with her, and then I later tried to marry her, but found out she was cheating on me. Story 31. I overheard her talking to her ex. There were lots of other red flags prior, but that was the nail in the coffin. She made him out to be some cruel person that used their daughter as a pawn. She was on the phone with him and apparently didn't realize how thin the walls in my house were. I heard both sides of the conversation, and this dude was a much better man than me. She screamed at him for a full half hour and threatened to make sure he never saw their daughter, etc. He remained calm and soft-spoken the whole time. Literally everything she accused him of being is exactly what she was. When the conversation was over, I told her she had to go. A week later, I was on vacation and my neighbor who was watching my cats in house texted me she thought we had broken up. I said we had. The crazy ex was there asking for the key to my house. She told the neighbor we had reconciled and she was going to stay at my house while I was away. She tried to argue, but long story short, I told the ex if she didn't leave, I was making 2 phone calls. The police and her ex-husband's attorney. That was literally the last thing that was said between us, but they did send all messages and a nice email to her ex-husband, which she was very grateful for. Hopefully it worked out for him in the end. Story 32. We'd been dating for 2 years and we fought constantly. I never fought with anyone quite this much. He was just really combative, 24/7. Must have been one of those children growing up that was persistently giving his parents a difficult time. Unsure. Anyway, when it got to the point that the very idea of being in the same room with your SO makes you groan because you're dreading whatever new thing you two are going to fight about, you know you've got to split. So we were out and about, just driving around. It was his car and he was driving, and of course, a completely mundane subject was magically turning into a debate. I swear this man was some kind of a real-life version of an internet troll or something. I realized if I even tried to discuss breaking up, that would turn into yet another knockdown, drag-out argument. My mental health was wearing thin. And I'm not someone who is typically afraid of confrontation. Lol, so we rolled up to a stop. I simply said, no, and got out of the car. I just started walking, kind of going la-dee-da-dee-da in my head, just getting farther and farther away from his car. The white noise from him yelling, oh my god, where are you going? Fading farther off into the distance. I walked until I reached a payphone. This was 20 years ago. Called a ride, never spoke to him again. I think he eventually understood he was being dumped. Story 33. I just started watching a movie with my friends. Right before the movie began, I messaged the girl I was seeing, saying I'd catch up with her when it was over, because I hate it when people are on their phone during a movie. At one point, my friend went to get a beer from the kitchen, so we paused the movie. I quickly thumb-scrolled once through Instagram, double-tapped the picture of my cousin, and then put my phone away. My phone went off. It was a text from her asking if we could talk for a while. I said, sure, after the movie. I got an instant response saying, oh, so you've got time to go on Instagram and like pictures of other girls, but you don't have time to talk to me? I get it. So there are several things wrong here. Firstly, how did she know I'd been on Instagram? How did she know I'd like the picture in that minuscule time frame? By other girls, I assume she meant my cousin. Gross. Why did she react that way? I straight up noped and never saw her again. You might think that it wasn't a big deal and shouldn't have let it get to me, but we'd only met up twice, and that message just threw up so many flags for future issues. She proceeded to blog about how much of a schmuck I was for about a year after that. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.